So far it seems to be about if, buts and maybes. Hi, welcome back to 33 Sonder. Now, naturally, you know I'm not going to be giving up on the Claudia Lawrence case, and I've been thinking a lot about it, and there's stuff that I want to discuss with you. But I'll do it carefully. But let's go. Now, for those who've watched some of my Claudia videos, you'll know that I'm looking at everyone who's been connected to Claudia, especially in the recent months of her life, or her disappearance, should I say. And I'm not accusing anybody in particular, although I play like a devil's advocate and look at all the possibilities that one person could have in a life. So a lot of this is theory as opposed to established facts. So I just want to remind you that this case does remain unsolved and nobody has ever been charged with vanishing. But I want to start with the subject, and that is Claudia herself before all else. Because I think sometimes it gets lost. It's like Claudia, that woman. But she weren't just a missing chef. She weren't just that headline, that breaking news. Claudia was Joan's daughter. She was Peter Lawrence's daughter. She had best friends. She was somebody who people like to rave with, to dine with. And she was Claudia was described as being really vivacious, really sociable, but also a girl that liked her routines. And she had two close friends, and they were Susie Cooper and Jen King. And it's natural when somebody disappears, as viewers, as the press, TV, media, whatever, we all become fascinated because here we are, shown somebody we don't know, but something impacts massively on their lives, which draws our interest. And we start with, who was she seeing? What did she look like? What were her relationships like? But that's why I'm called 33 Sonder. Claudia were just like me and you, he and she. So that's why I think, because she has a beating heart, that's why we should be looking at her. That's why we should put her at the centre of the story. And her friendships and her family. And look at the person that Claudia actually was. Now, as we know, there's lots of theories that are being discussed out there on social media, more so than in the press. But one of those theories is whether Susie Cooper and Jen King, Claudia's best mates at the Nag's Head, could possibly have been the people whose hair were being dyed at Claudia's house on the 18th of March in 2009.
Smash that like, hit the bell, do it right, give me more for the Lord, watch the numbers start to soar.
Now we know they were really close, like I said. In fact, early reports used to state how Claudia would often invite Susie Cooper and Jen King around to her property for meals and wine. Although in a later report, Susie Cooper states that really they just met at the Nag's Head. Although I've not found any reliable evidence that proves Jen or Susie were having their hair dyed at Claudia's, So I can't definitely say it happened or it was them. But what I can say is that both Jen and Susie were wearing blonde hair at the time, and neither are blonde ladies. Now, we know that Claudia had blonde hair kit opened, ready for use. We don't know if it had been used. But if somebody had had their hair dyed there, then it's important we find out who it were. Now, Claudia had a handful of friends scattered between the Nag's Head and Old Malton where she lived, or Malton where she lived. So it's reasonable to find out whose hair were being dyed. That's just a reasonable request. So if that happened, who was there in Claudia's? Who was a witness to it happening? And do we have any independent evidence other than a theory like Jen and Susie running around with blonde hair at the time? And like if we're starting at the beginning of the evening of Claudia vanishing, then that's an important question that remains unanswered. Who were using the hair dye? Now also there were rumours or facts that spokesman Martin Dales had control over CCTV. Now, I'm not quite sure whether that was in Malton, Old Malton, or at Eworth, or all three. So I'd like to just focus on Martin Dales for a minute, because he weren't just a person who appeared in the story. He was Peter Lawrence's, Claudia's dad's best friend. He became the spokesman, and he also ran a website called Find Claudia. He ran that for years, and he was collecting all information, getting all the tip-offs and passing them on. I mean, these claims about Martin having control of CCTV, or in particular having access to them, we still have to be careful, because there's no reliable, factual evidence establishing any of that. So I can't turn that as an allegation into a fact, but we'll keep it as a possible theory. But if someone connected to the case did have access to those cameras, then it's a very legitimate question. Was it Martin Dales? Now, I know the cameras that are situated on Eworth Place, round the corner of Eworth Road, where you head towards the back of Claudia Alley, those CCTVs are controlled by the university. But the other cameras, who owned them? Was it in Rowan's house opposite? And also, who could access these CCTVs? Who were it who looked at the footage? Did they override anything? Were anything missing or deleted? And were any of this footage ever provided to North Yorkshire Police? It's just things that need clarifying still, before we all go off on tangents. I mean, we're aware that the police did have access to some CCTV, because on the evening of the 18th of March, they captured a man and they need him identifying, who was seen near Claudia's home. Now, I'm just wanting to look at the Nag's Head pub, and in particular the picture where you see Lee Horwell and Beth dancing together with Claudia at the distance with her back to us in a red top at the bar. Now, we've questioned whether that were a staged image, a staged photograph. And it's understandable to ask that because it was so perfectly captured. And as strange as the photograph looked, it's not proof of any form of staging. It's debatable. Now, Dave thinks it looks staged, but I thought it looked captured, like evidenced. I mean, if some people think it's been staged to create part of the Claudia Lawrence vanishing narrative, it needs something more than that, more than a theory. What about the date? Does anybody know when it was taken? Do we know the circumstances in which it was taken? Do we know the person who took that photograph? We just need to know what circumstances was that picture taken in as a starting point, as a fact. And I'm sure somebody knows who took that image. I mean, were it the barmaid, the landlord, or the barmaid, Jen King, such as, who were taking an innocent-looking picture to create a display in the pub, as they do. Because we have to be careful that we're not taking something that may look strange and us then turning it into some factual evidence. Because it's things like that what make it a bit of a risky thing, especially when this case is still unsolved. But I think one of the big things for me and a lot of years is the timeline. We keep coming back to that timeline because police said their review supported the belief that Claudia left home on the morning of the 19th of March. Her bed had been made, she'd eaten breakfast, she'd brushed her teeth, her GHD straighteners and her rucksack were missing, which is typical of when she goes to work. It's what she'd take. And then she's gone. Now they believe that that's the part that matters. But then there's people out there in the social media, and like myself, who think it's more possible that Claudia vanished on the night of the 18th of March, before the morning had even arrived. And I think because it appears that she left for work, then to North Yorkshire Police, that's what matters. Not whether somebody were looking nervous in an interview. Not whether we personally like somebody or we don't. Or even if a person's photograph looks strange. It's more about what actually happened between Claudia being in her comfortable home to then vanishing. And that's an important part of the timeline. Who knows something that they failed to repeat, that they failed to tell the police? And why would you hold that knowledge and not share it? Now, 17 and more years later, this case will continue to fascinate others after all these years. Because she's not just a mystery, is Claudia Lawrence. She is that real woman, that 35-year-old lady who vanished. Yet she had a family waiting for her to come home. And naturally, I'm not accusing Martindale's. It's just that there's uncanninesses, ironies. What are the chances that items that possibly belong to Claudia Lawrence were found at a stone's throw from the spokesman's home? And these items that were found a stone's throw from that spokesman's home were found in a sacred area, St Mary's Priory Church in Old Malton, in those grounds where Claudia grew up and attended, and where her mother, Joan, still visits each Sunday. And also, it's where the spokesman played the organ as well. And her father, Peter Lawrence, he appeared to spend years trying to find out what happened to his daughter. And his friend, that spokesman, Martindale's, he continued publicly campaigning after Peter's death. And because Claudia Lawrence, who's the centre of all this, who's still unaccounted for, still missing, still unsolved, then I think it's natural for anybody to question the investigation. We all need to be looking at what seems wrong, right, all those inconsistencies. And we need to discuss all the theories and put them out there if it helps North Yorkshire Police to see that bigger picture. But we need to try do it as responsibly as possible, somehow. But after all these years, the 17 years, the biggest question is, what happened to Claudia Lawrence?